Good morning, everyone. Today is May 4th. Welcome to the Montgomery County Council. This week, we have a very important week of actions. Today, the County Council will continue the review of the FY27 operating budget and amendments to the FY27-32 Capital Improvements Program. Council committees have been meeting regularly to review each department's budget, and today and the rest of the week, we will review the committee recommendations. Council member Sales is not going to be, I don't know if is she on? Okay. She is in a conference for the whole week, and she will be joining us virtually. So with that, we're going to start with the status report of the overview of revenues and expenditures. I'm going to turn it to staff so they can kick us off.
Okay, good morning. So the committees have now reviewed all department and agency budgets over the past several weeks, and we've prepared a summary of the committee's recommendations to date. And as a reminder, all committee changes to the proposed changes to the FY27 operating budget are tracked against the executive's March 13th recommendation. We'll start with resource changes. So to date, committees have recommended resource changes that would result in a net decrease of $162.4 million in available funds for the FY27 operating budget. This is primarily due to a series of GO committee recommendations on tax rates. The first recommendation was to reject the executive's proposed property tax increase and the executive's proposed income tax increase. The second recommendation was to adopt a new progressive income tax structure, which would reduce FY27 resources by $64.9 million, to reduce the income tax offset credit in FY27 from $692 to $0 in conjunction with the progressive income tax structure, which increases FY27 resources by $139.7 million, and to apply $50 million in one-time FY27 revenue associated with the recommended property and income tax rates to the capital budget. The next section is reductions, and to date, committees have recommended a total of $10.3 million in reductions compared to the county executive's budget. And the full list of proposed reductions so far is on page 10 of the staff report. And so if the council, just starting with these two elements, if the council were to adopt the resource changes and reductions recommended to date, it will need to find an additional $152.1 million in reductions to approve a balanced budget as shown in the table on the first page, at the bottom of the first page of the staff report. On page 2 of the staff report, we summarize the required reconciliation list items. And the committees have added $214.2 million to the reconciliation list for further consideration per the council president's budget approach. Decisions not to fund items on the reconciliation list will reduce the gap that I just mentioned in the table previously. $28.9 million of the total on the reconciliation list is for additions, enhancements, or other proposed cost increases from Montgomery County government, and $5.7 million is from proposed replacement of grant funds with general funds in county government. The biggest chunk of the money on the reconciliation list is $179.6 million from MCPS's requested increase in local funding over FY26. We also have additions that the committees have recommended to be considered as part of the budget, and in total, committees have placed $9.8 million in additions on the reconciliation list. Decisions to fund additions will increase the gap shown in the table because they were not assumed in the executive's proposed budget. Details on all these different elements are included on pages 3 through 12 of the staff report. And additionally, the attachments include various budget proposals or memorandums prepared by council members for their colleagues' consideration as part of your deliberative process. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that report. Not good news at all. Looking at the first page, and I hope everybody can see it and read it. It's on our agendas. It's posted there as the first item. And the remaining gap for a balanced budget is $152 million. And I think we need to keep that in mind as we move forward this week, where we are going to have to make some serious reductions. I think this is a reminder that this county cannot continue to spend money the way it has been for a while. The needs are huge, yes, but this gap is a wake-up call. And it does require leadership, and it requires another way of thinking of how we should be able to run a government in a responsible way. Later today, we're gonna have the vote on the property tax increase. With that said, I think we all can make the assumption on where that vote is gonna go. We already have a committee recommendation for that one. But the fact that we received a budget by the county executive with numbers that don't exist, right? In order to fund this budget, we needed to have a 6.3 cent property tax increase, plus an income tax increase that targeted everybody, regardless of how much money they made. And the fact that many of the decisions that we're making, or where the money is going, in this case MCPS, we have no authority. And that conversation of having authority has been revealed pretty strongly in recent actions that we have made as late as last week when we voted on the CIP item on the outdoor athletic fields. We don't have authority to say to NCPS if it should use natural grass or turf at all, yet the county executive inserted that into the whole conversation when he knows we don't have the authority. And I do appreciate how NCPS has evolved to be more transparent. But the budget request is huge, and whatever decisions we're going to be making this week, I'm going to make it very clear, will affect how the reconciliation will end up. And the biggest driver for that is MCPS. I want to make sure that's absolutely clear. I put out a guideline to a budget memo. I think that was 3 weeks ago at this point. It feels like decades ago. Understanding that we were moving forward to not having a property tax increase, and that this council needed to put everything on the table and truly analyze where can we have reductions in a way that we do not affect the most vulnerable, and in a way that really ensures that the county will continue to run. And I think that process has made me realize something that we have talked about it in the past, but it has never been so vivid as I see it now, is that we have a system that is completely broken. We have negotiations with unions where the council doesn't participate. Then we have MCPS that have their own negotiations with their own union. And then we ended up to figure out how we can afford to pay the bill. And when the money is not there, it makes it impossible. And that's where we are right now. And saying that we're going to use our reserves is not responsible. Why? Because it affects our AAA bond rating. And that is something that we all need to be careful and need to take it seriously. So I felt like I had to say this because we're going to start making reductions, and we're going to start making decisions that should not be politicized at all. And when I said the budget memo, and I put things on that memo that it was really hard for me to put up. I come from the labor union movement, not only because I worked for SEIU, and I think a lot of people don't know that, but because my first job out of college, when I worked for CASA, guess what I did? That union, CWA, that represents CASA, I founded that union with 3 other colleagues. It was me. So when I tell you that we need to open up labor contracts, I'm saying it in a very painful way, and I'm saying it because we are in the red zone right now. You cannot just continue doing business as it has been happening for many years. It's not sustainable. It's not honest. And I know it's difficult, and I have talked to many of you, if not all of you, and I know that what I am pushing has been difficult because it's hard for folks to wake up and just disrupt what has been functioning for so long. Guess what? My job is to disrupt and to ensure that we evolve. And it's not comfortable. It's not supposed to be comfortable at all. So But when I hear from certain folks and say, well, the county unions are only gaining from 2.5 to 3% for 3% SWA, and the teachers have something higher, that concern is valid. I understand it. Because when we say labor unions, it's everybody, not just one sector, it's everyone. But I have no control on what MCPS will do because I'm not on the Board of Education. I'm on the County Council. And we have a system where we give money to MCPS and we have no authority on what to do with that money. Zero. And that is a problem, huge problem. And the fact that we're still working in silos. I am going to commit to something here. I'm going to put together a roundtable in the fall. I want to put a roundtable with the head of MCPS, including the school board, teachers union, or county labor unions, the vice president of the county council, who's going to become president of this council in December, and the upcoming, or whoever gets elected, county executive as a Democratic nominee and Republican nominee too. And really seriously take a look at how we are working, because it's just not, it doesn't function. We are in a position where we need to make serious reductions right now. And as I have said before, there's no way I'm gonna touch on anything that deals with housing. I will not do it. I'm not gonna help. The people who are about to get evicted, they are the most vulnerable. So those are the ones that I'm gonna protect. Second, public safety, or anything that deals with transportation infrastructure and making sure that with our bus drivers, that operation continues moving. Those are the main areas that I care about and that we need to protect, which means that if we don't open labor contracts because it's not convenient, and if we don't make reductions in particular places or programs that we care about, and in that list that I put on my memo, I even included the McHale one, the one that deals with ESOL. I'm the only ESOL person in this place. I'm the only one whose English is not the first language, and I put it in that list because when I say we're gonna touch everything, I had to put things that I also deeply care about. So just get ready to find $152 million. And it's sad that we're here, and it's not anybody's fault, but it doesn't mean that we don't take responsibility to change a process that is not working. And we're gonna break some hearts, lots of them, and we gotta own it and move forward. And so that's how I feel. And no, I'm not gonna turn it to anybody. We're gonna start moving and voting. And I do wanna say, because I saw Councilmember Wiljawondo, I'm gonna give you flowers. I'm gonna give you compliments, Councilmember Wiljawondo, because when I said we're in a tough situation in that budget memo, and I said we're gonna have to seriously touch on everything and make really hard decisions, and I'm looking forward to suggestions to make reductions. Councilmember Jawondo took the assignment. He didn't just come to me and said it, he put it on paper for us to think and debate. And that's what I expect each one of us to do, because it's gonna be really hard. And I was at an event on Friday with him and Councilmember Don Lukey, and the Green Bank was there. And I said to the Green Bank, I am so sorry, because we're about to reduce your budget. I love you, but there's just the math doesn't work. And then when I got off the stage, because that was my speech, believe it or not, when I got off the speech, Councilmember Jawondo came to me and said, I said the same thing to them, and I appreciated that, because this is the time where we need leaders, not just to say, I don't want to have a tax increase. Tell me what you're gonna reduce. Don't tell me what's the soundbite nowadays. Be a leader and tell me what are you going to be reducing, and be public about it. But that's where we are today. And I look forward to making those reductions. I am not going to turn it to any colleague right now. We're going to move on to the next part of the agenda, where we're going to be starting making these reductions. And at that point, everybody can speak and do what they have to do. So as a reminder to my colleagues, we will take a straw vote for each budget. And at that point, you can make your comments. If a new reduction or addition is recommended by this council, we will note it for the resolution process, which happens next week, not this week, next week. So with that, the first budget to discuss is the Ethics Commission, and that is with Council Member Chair Stewart from Go. Go ahead.
Thank you. The Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee reviewed the Ethics Committee budget. I want to say thank you to Ms. O'Connor for her work on the Ethics Commission. We only had one item on the reconciliation that was for $273,000 in enhancements for an upgrade to the ethics program IT systems. This had been requested in prior years as well. The committee also discussed that much of the requirements of the Ethics Commissions regarding the reporting system is required by law. And so in order to keep up with the law and the reporting requirements, Ms. O'Connor is requesting again in this year's budget for the funds to upgrade the ethics program. In addition to this, we did review the OBIT score for the commission, which received a 5 out of 11 and showed an emergent commitment to racial equity and social justice. The committee discussed how it is a small but mighty department, and that it would be working with our Racial Equity and Social Justice Department to strengthen its work in this area. And so the only item for consideration today for this commission is the enhancement for the upgrades to the ethics program, and it was recommended by the committee to place this on the reconciliation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Does council staff have anything else to add?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to now turn it to Councilmember Wojo-Wando.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you to the GO Committee, and thank you to the Ethics Commission. I believe I'm up to date on my filing, so you guys are doing great work. You're a lean operation. Yeah, that's about as lean as you can get. Just a question. Obviously, it's a tough budget year. You've heard that. The systems upgrade, I know we talked about this a little bit last year. Our current system works, right? Is it experiencing failures, or if so, could you explain?
It failed 2 weeks ago.
Okay. As far as, in what way?
It was a colossal failure. TEBS migrated, first, thank you all for seeing me today. 2 weeks ago on April 23rd, TEBS migrated the financial disclosure system to a new server. And the financial disclosure system came online in 2015, so it's now an 11-year-old system. It is no longer supported, and when they migrated the system to the new server, it crashed, and no one knew it until I started getting phone calls from users, from county employee users who could no longer access their financial disclosure account. You all are aware that the deadline was tax day, April 15th, and I usually spend the next 2 weeks chasing the 10% that need a special invitation. So during that time, this server migration issue occurred. It wasn't until the following week that we realized that the fix that TEBS had spent 2 days creating only worked for county employees. It did not work for our volunteers who access the system through the extranet. So I had a lot of county volunteers then calling me saying, I can't do what you need me to do. And this is a legally mandated reporting requirement. And so they were all at this point facing enforcement action and had no legally binding way to avoid it because the system did not work. It took 3 dedicated TEBS employees, a total of 5 business days, to actually bring the system back online. And it took me several hours in communication with TEBS in meetings with them to facilitate that. And again, right now I am a one-person operation.
Sure.
The financial disclosure system is mandated by Section 19A-18 of the county code that states that the filing system must be electronic. The failure of the electronic system does not negate the reporting requirement. No one in this room, I believe, remembers the paper days. And if we go back to paper, that is going to cost the county more money in the long run because I will require my third PIN, which was taken in 2019. In 2019, that position was a grade 21. It cost the county $115,000 a year for that one position. We electrified all of our systems and wound up no longer needing that third PIN. And largely it was because the financial disclosure system worked so well. This is a continued maintenance issue. It is absolutely necessary. We have run out of road to which we can kick the can.
I appreciate your answer and understand why the committee added it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So without objection, we need to have a straw vote. So all those in favor, please raise your hand. On the
What's the actual vote? Sorry.
on your committee recommendation.
Okay, yeah, okay.
What
yeah,
you said. Okay.
Yeah.
I had a question.
Oh.
Before we take the vote.
Oh,
Lorianne, go ahead, Councilmember Lorianne Sells. I didn't see you asking for. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just had a question for the department. I see that there's multiple phases for integrating and upgrading the system.
I am so sorry. We cannot hear you. We barely hear you, I should say.
I see that there are 3 phases for upgrading the system. Is that any better?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. So there's 3 phases to upgrading the system. Is that correct?
There are 3 separate systems in the Ethics Commission's program portfolio, and the TEBS discussion is that it is more cost effective to upgrade all 3 at once. It will cost the county more if they separate those systems out into separate upgrade processes. It is cheaper to simply do it in one fell swoop.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. And the additional positions, they're permanent or temporary just to upgrade the system?
That would just be a 1-year contract with a senior IT specialist through an existing contract that TEBS has.
Okay, thank you.
May I add one thing? I'm so sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Just to that point, the last year's request was close to $600,000. I have willingly said I'm going to incorporate a lot of the additional manpower needed to continue these systems and maintain the systems. I will work those into my own office, into our portfolio, so that we do not need to cost the county an additional $50,000 year over year for systems maintenance.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else having a question. With that, all those in favor to the Ethics Commission budget, please raise your hand. It passed unanimously. Thank you. Next, we're going to go to historical activities, non-departmental account. I'm going to turn it to Chair Fritzen and Chair Jawando. You both.
I
Yeah,
chair
go
this
ahead.
one. Yeah, appreciate it. This was a straightforward one, a relatively modest one, but one that we care very deeply about. I was appreciate Mr. Logan joining us. The county executive recommended a budget of $184,325. That's actually less than the approved FY26 budget by over 19% due to the elimination of funding for 2 projects that were included in last year's budget. It does include a 2.5% inflationary adjustment for nonprofit provider contracts, which will be taking it up outside of this recommendation. The C's budget didn't have anything that would be included in the rec list because it was a reduction, but the Joint Committee did recommend $15,000 in funding for the oral history project, which was not included in Montgomery History's budget this year. This was part of a discussion that we had. There's been ongoing work through a contractor to record the oral history of some of the Black elders in our community and to ensure that the African American history that we have in Montgomery County is captured in perpetuity, and to put us in position to completing that work through the existing contractor, which is something that the council has supported. So a reduction from last year of quite a bit, 184,325. The committee did recommend adding the 15,000 because it wasn't included in the county executive's budget. That would be placed on the reconciliation list.
Thank you for that. Before I turn it to staff, Councilmember Evans.
Yes, good to see you, Mr. Logan. I thought it was really important that since the work had been started with the Black oral history information, that we continue that on. I think it's really important that not only our students, but our community, the residents, are very much aware of what's happening. We don't want history to repeat itself, and how we get educated is we have that information. A lot of what we're seeing happening across the country, we could do better by providing opportunities for people just to be educated and made aware. So I thought it was really important that we add something in so that you can continue that work. And so thank you for that.
Thank you for that. I don't think there's anything else to add, and I don't see anybody else wanting to have any questions. With that, is there a motion? Go ahead.
My apologies. I saw Councilmember Sales' hand was raised.
All right, Councilmember Sales, you're gonna have to please, because you're not here, you're gonna have to text me, because I can't see you, and so since you're not here,
I
please.
texted you the last time and you didn't see it, so I thought the hand would work. So I'll do both. All right. So I had a question about the work of this body. The 50,000 that you requested that the county executive did not include in his budget, but the committee provided 15,000. Are you able to share what the plan is to do with that funding and what you won't be able to do if you're not fully funded?
Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words. There were two aspects to the original $50,000 request. One was for the oral history work, and the second was to commemorate the county's 250th anniversary, which is coming up on September 6th. Obviously, it's a major milestone and an opportunity, as I had mentioned to the committee, to express the county's values relative to what is happening nationally. And it's, I think, a very important opportunity. With the additional funding, we're going to be able to continue our oral history work at a lower level, but as I mentioned, the ability to maintain relationships and to keep some momentum, it takes a long time to develop trust in communities that have been traditionally excluded from historical narratives. And so for us to sort of disappear in that regard would be incredibly damaging. And if you'd allow me, I'd like to introduce Adidana Ashabir, who is our oral historian, just to say a few words about what's on tap for the future.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. And I also completely appreciate the tough time that, or the tough decisions that have to be made. So far, we've been able to interview community members from Emery Grove, Bethesda, Scotland, Lincoln Park, Damascus, Littonsville, and Norberg, Sandy Spring. Of course, there's much more work that we would like to do. And what we don't want to do is be anthropologists that come in, extract, and then leave and disappear, as Matt has just said. There's other communities that even when I joined to do this work, we were told that they didn't want to talk because they didn't trust people and they had been burned. And so these are the things that take, unfortunately, a bit of time. But it's been an honor as a Montgomery County resident and proud product of Montgomery County Schools to learn about my home in this way as well. And we're definitely eager to continue this work, to reach the communities that we haven't been able to reach thus far, and also to continue to tell stories that also now come to us because we've heard, or people now know, that we're doing this work. I just sat with Mr. Vernon Ricks, and we're able through that story to talk not only about the past, but about the present, as he was at Xerox and built the company's affirmative action policy. And so naturally he has thoughts about the current DEI moment that we're in. Also speaking recently, I had a 4-hour interview with Mr. Rico Newman, who is a member of the Piscataway Conoy tribe, and he had his thoughts on what the 250th means to him as an Indigenous person and his experiences and what the celebration, quote unquote, means or doesn't mean. And so not only are we able to talk about history in our work, we're also able to talk about the present. And so it's a really interesting moment that we find ourselves in, and we appreciate your continued support.
Thank you. So if we can just repeat what we're voting for the record. Thank you.
We're going to vote for the historical activities non-departmental account as recommended by the Joint Committee. That's what we're voting for. And includes everything that has been discussed. Is that? Okay. So
I want to know what we were decreasing or increasing.
We're going to, no. The recommendation from the Joint Committee is on the staff report. We're going to vote exactly on what the staff report says for the Joint Committee recommendation. And I don't think anybody here is in disagreement with the Joint Committee recommendation. No one is. So with that, we have a recommendation by the Joint Committee that discussed the historical activities non-departmental account. All those in favor, please raise your hand. It was approved unanimously. Thank you so much for coming today. We're going to move on to item number 4, Maryland National Capital Parking Planning Commission. Just give me 1 second. And I'm going to turn it to the chair of the committee, of PHP Committee Chair Friedson.
Thank you, Madam President. The PHP Committee reviewed the County Executive's recommended budget for the Parks Department and Planning Department, as well as the budget for the Bi-County Central Administration Services, CAS. This operating budget review is a bit different from most of the other budgets we review, that the County Executive funds all or a portion of the agency's requested budgets. The discussion about the gap between the request and the recommended funding allocation revolves around a series of non-recommended cuts outlining the program, services, positions, or other operating budget functions that would not be able to happen if they're not funded. Both departments, Parks and Planning, are asked to do more each year. The budget allocations on a year-over-year basis, however, lag behind most other government departments and offices and have consistently over the last several years. Despite this, both departments have successfully scaled up their public outreach, have demonstrated, developed, and implemented creative and community-facing programming, and have done a significant and intentional effort to do more outreach and engagement with communities. Our county's park system, all of the camps, classes, and special events offered to the public is one of our crown jewels. One only needed to attend Sligo Fest on Saturday. I think many of us were there, along with over 10,000 other festival attendees, to see how alive and vibrant our parks are and how valued they are to Montgomery County residents. There's truly something in our parks for everyone. As you heard in our semi-annual briefing in April, the Planning Department continues to work on land use plans that will carry our county into the next 2 decades, while continuing to look for innovative ways to connect with residents. And our Planning Academy, which was just recently recognized and launched this past fiscal year, is a really good example of some of the modern innovations that are doing. Part of the committee's recommendation is to continue with that work, with knowing what we know in terms of what it actually costs and what the staffing needs and technological needs are to actually make it happen. I'm going to ask that Ms. Dunn walk us through these budgets and review the committee's recommendations, since there are a number of them, and ask that we turn to Chair Harris, Director Figueredo, and Director Sartori as needed, and as we take up their respective budgets.
And I'm just going to add that I know there is a desire by some colleagues to discuss particular items and actually recommend reductions. So the way we're going to work it is that once those items are up, that's when you come in and make your pitch. If you want to say that you want to have a reduction, and then we'll take a vote on that item, and then we move on to the next one. Because if I wait until the end, it's gonna get very confusing because I wanna avoid the back and forth. So your comments, please limit them to that particular item when those items are up. So maybe you wanna go give general, why don't we actually do the opposite? If you need to say some general comments, you may, and then we turn it to staff because they're gonna go item by item.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let me start. Council President Fanny Gonzalez and members of the council, thank you for the opportunity to speak and provide a brief remarks. I'm Marty Harris, for the record, Chair of the Planning Board. Based on our analysis and conversations with many of you and monitoring financial reports, even as early as fiscal year 26, we knew that fiscal year 27 would be an extremely tough budget year. That's why our proposed budget was primarily a same services budget. Compounding this, as in years past, the county executive continues to recommend a lower increase for MNCPPC than his county agencies. For fiscal year 27, we received a proposed 4% increase, while the county agencies receive on average a 6%. We just want to be treated equitably. It was a huge stretch for us to get down to the county exec's recommended budget with our non-recommended cuts, including forcing additional lapses to fill previously approved positions and reducing our funding for planning's development review team, in addition to other proposed reductions and requests for items to be placed on the reconciliation list. We are fully understand that the county's fiscal limitations and challenges this year. But I want to be clear that any requests in addition to the additional requests below the 4% increase will affect compensation. It will affect compensation. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Figueredo.
Yes, thank you, Council President Fanny Gonzalez. This is our only chance to be in front of the full council before you make a really important vote, and we have over 1,000 employees in the Parks Department who are paying very close attention to what's happening here. As the chair said, we're just asking to be treated equitably. We came in as a Parks Department with a same services budget. We got our compensation a little bit for the cost of Wheaton headquarters, a little bit of risk management from the county executive, and the rest of that $3.2 million, which is major known commitments, we had to offer up as non-recommended reductions. I don't know how we would take all of those non-recommended reductions without affecting compensation, because some of the things that are on the reconciliation list are things we have to pay for. Others are things that if we don't get the funding for them, you will see a decline in services in parks. And parks are one of the most visible things that county residents see. So when they see this decline in services, and the decline will be real, we will all hear about it. I appreciate the chance to be in front of you and to answer whatever questions you may have. But again, this was a same services budget. We understand that you are making really hard choices. We are asking to be treated equitably along with all the other departments in front of you.
Council member. Director Sartori.
Not yet. No,
Not yet.
Just kidding.
The announcement just came today. Okay.
Thank you. For the record, Jason Sartori, Planning Director. I want to reiterate what we've heard here. We fully understand the dilemma that you have, the tough decisions that you have, are ones that are not unfamiliar to us, because we are continually in the Planning Department operating from a point of disadvantage in terms of budget and staffing. And I just want to remind, it would even be unfair to ask us to take an equal or proportional share of additional cuts when we have not, for the past 2 decades, and in particular for the last 7 years, we have not been able to benefit from a proportionate share of the gains over that time. Since the Great Recession, county agencies have seen a 26% increase in staffing. We have seen a 6.9% in planning over that same time. In fact, county staffing is 12.5% higher than it was in 2009. Meanwhile, planning staff is 15.4% lower. I would also point out, when we have implemented a savings plan this year, I don't know how many other agencies or departments have done that. We've done it this year to make ends meet. We did that. We don't have much natural lapse. So we've done this by actually keeping positions open, much vacant, much longer than we need. And you know how badly we need positions. We've done it by finding savings in training, staff awards, computer system upgrades, consultant contracts. We're doing this so that we can keep the Development Review Special Revenue Fund solvent. And so, with all the things that have come on in recent years, there's been a lot more asked of us, but we haven't got new positions to do that. And one of them, it's, with the new expedited plans we have a budget that the county executive has put forward that actually would leave 5 of our development review positions unfunded. It's just unacceptable. We understand how difficult this is, but in order for us to do the engagement that you ask us to do the placemaking, to do the master planning work, to be out in the community, we need this funding. And I would also highlight some of the recommendations and things that you all have moved forward or things that have come from the planning department. So, Vision Zero, we didn't get a new position. We have a lot of stuff that we do with Vision Zero, the Safe Streets Act. Many of those recommendations came directly from planning work. We didn't get a new position for that. We didn't get one for climate assessments. We didn't get one for the work on the climate action plan. So we need everything that we have.
Thank you. With that, we're going to start with council staff going line by line. And again, council members that want to look into each particular item, please let me know.
Great. Thank you and good morning, council. So you have a staff report for you for this item. It is around 6 pages for the staff report. It is a very brief staff report in that respect. It just gives you what the committee recommendations are, and I will go through those in a minute. But I just wanted to let you know, or for anyone else that's following this, attached is the PHP committee staff report, which was actually very detailed. And so if you have questions or you need a little more information as we're going, you can also go to the PHP committee staff report. It's in the packet. So with that, on the first page of the staff report, you'll see that there's a summary of what was approved in FY26 for the Park Fund and the Administration Fund. You'll see what the FY27 CE recommendation is and the percent change above the FY26 budget. So the county executive has recommended a 4% increase for the Park Fund, an approximately 3.6% increase for the Administration Fund. And when you put all the funds together, including debt service, grants, and other funds, it's around a 4% increase. We will first cover the Park Fund. Parks has requested an FY27 tax-supported funding of approximately $148 million. This excludes grants, debt service, and reserves, and it represents an $8.8 million or 6.3% increase over FY26. The executive recommended 4% increase over FY26 results in not being able to meet everything that they've requested. On page 2 at the top, you'll see that there's a recommendation from the committee that almost $2.7 million in funding be placed on the reconciliation list. It is itemized for you in a table. These were increases to the FY26 budget. They were offered as Tier 1 reductions in order to meet the county executive's recommended budget. So there are items 1 through 5. The first 3 are increases in funding to allow for a decrease in their salary lapse. So it is broken into 3 parts. They requested a full 2% decrease in lapse, but it's been broken out by the committee to allow for 1%, 1.5%, or the full 2%. Then there's reductions to major known commitments that include an increased transfer to risk management and an increase in funding for operating budget impacts. And then the 5th one are increases for contractual obligations, inflationary adjustments for supplies and materials, and utilities. I'll take a pause.
I see Councilmember Andrew Friedson.
Thank you, Madam President. I think it would be helpful to turn it to the department to talk about lapse in particular. I just want to note for historical context, we've changed the lapse over time because the lapse was, or the vacancies, excuse me, were higher previously, particularly in the Parks Department. That has changed. And so number one, we changed our lapse assumption to be more aggressive in the expectation of what our lapse would be. And we asked the department to be more aggressive in the vacancy dynamic. Now, the challenge that we have is the lapse number and the vacancy number is basically razor thin. It's essentially equivalent right now. And so the issue right now is that there is no margin, which is what you need in order to hire people. And so, being in a hiring freeze is an official labor designation, and they're not quite at that point, but they are on the cusp of that right now. And the decision that we make here would potentially and very likely trigger that. So I just think it doesn't seem like lapse is a very important decision. This might actually be the single most important decision that we make in terms of services and in terms of the labor force and the impact that it has on our employees in the Parks Department in particular, being able to deliver planning as well, but Parks has a lot more staff. So I think it would be appropriate to turn to them to explain what the actual impact is here.
Yeah, thank you. Councilmember Friedson, you summarized that very well. We are at a 10% lapse. Historically, we've been at like a 7 or a 7.5. Lapse is intended to kind of track what your actual vacancy is. And now we are at about 10% vacancy and 10% lapse. A reduction by 2% of our lapse number would allow us to fill, it varies because different positions pay differently. They're at a different pay scale, probably 13 or 14 positions. Some of this, of course, can be phased in. It's been organized in tranches, and you can see that in the packet. We would prioritize, in keeping with what is, I think, for the time being, for the foreseeable future, the focus of the Parks Department, which is maintaining a state of good repair in our parks. We would focus on safety and maintenance. So we have several park police positions that we would be able to fill if we could reduce our lapse, as well as a number of maintenance positions. Those vacancies in maintenance have a real impact on our staff. They have to do more. And they feel the pressure and they see the impact of having those positions unfilled. It's definitely affects services, and it affects, of course, employee morale. So our ability to hire additional staff is really important to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Balcom.
Yes, thank you. I just have a technical question on the reconciliation list. So we have 3 items on the reconciliation list. Are they cumulative or pick one?
So the way I would explain it is they would be cumulative if you picked all 3. If you picked the first 3, Parks would now have an 8% lapse.
Okay.
If you picked the first one, they would go from a 10% to a 9% lapse.
But what if you pick the third one?
Well,
you can't. So I think that
right. We put them in priority order in that sense, so that the very first one you'd pick would be a smaller increase to lapse. In a way, if you want to get to 8, you would have to pick all 3.
So I think we need that just needs to be clear
Yes.
when we start looking at it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You have something else? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to the reason, just it wouldn't matter except that the numbers are different. The reason why the numbers are different is that it's not in a full half a percentage point in the first one, because the lapse is it's what is the current vacancy number to the lapse assumption is the first budget number. So that's the reason why the first one is 412,582. If it was a perfect clean number where it was going from 10 to 9 to 8.5 to 8, then all the numbers would be the same. But it's based on real versus budgeted, and that's what the what the reason for, and that's the reason why the first number has to be first. Otherwise, the second 2, it doesn't matter if you pick the third 0.5% or the second 0.5%. They make no difference because it's not being compared to the actual. But the first one is being compared budgeted to actual, which is why the number looks odd. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, for instance, if we wanted an 8% lapse and we just picked number 3, we have to pick 1, 2, 3. So just as I said, it's a technical question when we start going through the rec list.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just wanted to explain the reason why the numbers aren't the same. At first, I didn't understand that either, and I had to be clarified, and I realized that we didn't clarify that for full council here, so I just want to make sure. Thanks.
You may continue.
Thank you. The next part of the staff report mentions the reductions that the committee supports. It reduces the park fund by almost $500,000, and this is to meet the C's recommended budget. There was an offered cut of $46,470, and then the tier 2 reductions offered by Parks to meet the C's budget totaled the $438,990 number in the staff report. And then the other recommendation that came from the Parks Department in looking at other things that have been proposed and offered by the county executive. One had to do with a transfer from the general fund to the special revenue fund for interagency agreements. This is for ball field maintenance. They had a bid for maintenance come in lower than expected when they had prepared their budget. The CE had gone with the number in their budget, but since it is now lower, Parks had offered that as a savings to the general fund, and that's in an amount of $342,337, sorry. And the committee supported that, and also supports the CE's recommended transfer of $50,000 to the park fund for connected parks. No more?
I'm not going to stop unless I see somebody having a question. Otherwise, you can continue.
So next is the administration fund. The administration fund is made up of the planning budget, the commissioner's office budget, and the budget for the Central Administrative Services, which is the administrative office that covers both Montgomery County Park and Planning and Prince George's County Park Planning and Rec. And for the administration fund, MNC's total tax-supported budget request was just almost $49 million. This represents a $3.2 million or 7% increase over the FY26 approved budget, and the executive recommends a 3.6% increase. We'll take up the Commissioner's Office first. It is the smallest of the three that are in this fund. And the committee's recommendation was to reduce the Commissioner's Office by $8,800. This was the only split decision that we had coming out of committee. MNC PPC had offered to cut the budget for the Commissioner's Office by $3,000 for staff trainings and conferences. And the Commission also offered a reduction in internship funding of $5,800. But the $5,800 was a majority position on the committee to put that on the reconciliation list. Keep going. Okay. For the planning department, the committee approved one-time professional service funding for the biennial travel monitoring report and the climate assessment tool. And then turning the page, they placed $118,000, a little over, in funding for the planning department on the reconciliation list. Again, those items are itemized for you in the staff report. And these were expenditures that were not offered as reductions to meet the CE's recommended budget, but they were in fact increases to the planning department FY27 budget. So it became a topic of conversation through the council president's approach to the budget. Okay, and then next there's the reductions. The planning department's, the committee recommended reducing their budget by almost $1.3 million to meet the CE's recommended budget, and this includes offered cuts totaling $448,000, tier 1 and 2 recommended reductions of just over $650,000, and reductions to requested increases of around $163,000, and those are all detailed in the PHP committee staff report. If we move on to the Central Administrative Services, there was a committee recommendation to reduce the Central Administrative Services portion of the administration fund by $40,000. This includes an offered cut of just over $20,000 and a recommended reduction of $19,000. I just want to make clear that the CAS portion of the budget, nothing can go on the reconciliation list because you will, as a joint council with the Prince George's County, will approve that portion of the budget before you get into the reconciliation of the Montgomery County budget. So whatever decisions you make today for CAS, it will stand. And the committee recommends taking both the cut that they offered and the recommended reduction that they would have liked on a reconciliation list, but that's just not part of the process here. So the committee's recommendation is to take it down by $40,000. And next is the non-departmental account. The committee placed $153,000 on the reconciliation list and has there was a recommended reduction that the committee had for $93,682. Okay. Also in this budget, there are other appropriations. There's the Property Management Fund, the Enterprise Fund, the Advanced Land Acquisition Revolving Fund, and those were all approved by the committee as submitted, and no problems. And now we'll turn to the special revenue funds. Their special revenue funds are used to account for the proceeds from specific revenue sources that are legally restricted to expenditures for specific purposes. Programs that appear in the special revenue fund are funded in total or in part by non-tax sources. The Development Review Special Revenue Fund, this year MNC PPC asked for a $3.9 million transfer from the administration fund for the Development Review Special Revenue Fund, and the CE had recommended a $1.5 million transfer. That was the amount approved last year. In response to the C's recommended budget, the board requested the council approve a minimum $900,000 transfer in addition to the $1.5 million that was part of the CE's budget. This would total a $2.4 million transfer. According to the department, the $900,000 increase is the minimum needed to support staff salaries associated with the work years required to perform development review activities. And the committee supported the $2.4 million transfer from the administration fund to the development review special revenue fund. And I just wanted to clarify, I think it came up after our finalizing the committee work session that the $900,000 as an addition is on the reconciliation list. Okay. And the next has to do with the Water Quality Protection Fund. MNC PPC requested an increase of just over $2 million in revenue to be transferred from the Water Quality Protection Fund to cover planning department staff time in their efforts on this fund. The C did not include this transfer of revenue to the planning department for this work. We've met with DEP and OMB and spent time talking about this at committee, and there's a dedicated effort to make sure that this work gets treated equitably and fairly as far as funding goes, and we'll start working on that in June. But as far as this budget, the committee felt like at this time to not make the change in funding source yet. And with that, there are some other special revenue funds that were all approved as submitted. Okay, we'll move on to the capital budget portion of what we're reviewing today. You as a council body have already reviewed the CIP proposed for the Parks Department, but since that time, the Maryland State legislation session ended with additional funding being provided to the Parks Department for a number of different projects. These are all listed at the bottom of the staff report and the top of, I think it's pages 4 and 5. And if you have any questions about those, I'm sure that the Parks Director would like to weigh in on that, but it is nice that they received it. It is earmarked funding. It goes to specific projects. There's no questions. So the only remaining issue we have here is that as part of the budget process, the council as a body approves the planning department's work program. And you were provided an overview of the planning department's work in the past year and what they see coming up. That was in the spring semi-annual. And you'll see in the staff report here the proposed items by the board for the coming fiscal year. They have a couple master plan, historic preservation master plan initiatives that are going to start or are underway, the Damascus Main Street sector plan amendment, and a climate resilience and adaptation functional plan. Also, just to give you a highlight of where things do stand, you have a master plan delivery schedule also in the staff report. And the committee did not recommend any changes to the proposed work program from the planning department. Good.
Thank you so much for that detailed staff report. It was so good that the person who was going to make motions did not do it. So with that, we have a recommendation by the PHP committee on the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission report. All those in favor, please raise your hand. It passed unanimously. Thank you so much for your leadership. I look forward to continue working with you. Item number 5 is WSSC Water. I see the WSSC or water team here. Please come forward, and as they get ready, I'm gonna ask the Chair of the Environment and Transportation Committee, Chair Glass, to kick us off in a second once they settle.
I got it. I heard it. Thank you. Just wanted to get no. The worst one is on me here all week. It's okay.
Sydney and I are just figuring out how many water puns we can share with each other. So, hot mic moment. There we go. Thank you very much, WSSC. Thank you very much, Madam President. The T&E committee had a lengthy discussion about the WSSC budget. We spent considerable time talking about the Potomac Interceptor.
and the cleanup and the repair and the ongoing costs. And this budget is critical to ensuring that our residents continue having access to clean and safe drinking water. That is what this budget is for. And in order to ensure clean and safe drinking water, WSSC has proposed a 2.4% increase in the system development charge to address the ongoing revenue gap in the system development charge for FY27 and capital related costs. WSSC has also requested additional expenditures for $2.2 million for the regional sewage disposal costs and $1.2 million in additional debt services costs, in addition to future operating and capital costs associated with the Potomac Interceptor pipe repair work that are not currently reflected in the proposed budget. And then finally, WSSC proposed a 5% volumetric rate and fixed fee increase for FY27. The T&E committee unanimously supported these requests, and the bi-county meeting with the Prince George's Council to approve these requests and the capital budget is scheduled for May 14th. With that, I turn back to you, Madam President.
Thank you so much for that report. I want to thank and acknowledge Ms. Powell, General Manager and CEO of WSSC Water, for being here today. You have been an amazing partner for us, and we're really thankful. Thank you for being here today. I don't see anybody that has with any questions. I'm going to turn it to council staff if there's anything else that was missing from the chair's report.
Yeah, just to quickly summarize the committee's recommendations. As Mr. Glass mentioned, the committee was supportive of WSSC Water's proposed FY27 budget. The budget does take into account what we call a mid-cycle update for the CIP, which the committee had also discussed earlier this season. So that those numbers are baked into the operating budget that you see here. But I did want to note that this time around, it was a very difficult budget process for WSSC Water, and they had to look deep within their existing budget to identify savings. So I noted in the packet about $27 million in savings they asked their internal departments to try to find. So that was able to bring the rate increase down to the 5% level, which was within the range of the two councils. The Prince George's Council had supported a 5% maximum rate increase, and the Montgomery County Council had supported a 6%, so they're at the 5. However, that was not in itself sufficient to cover even with the cuts that they made. So they did identify some one-time revenue. They had some unusually large interest income that helped them get through that extra percent, if you will, to sort of get the expenditures to the 6% level that our council would have supported, and also some use of fund balance. Going forward in the long-range plan that's also in the committee packet, we are still looking at some significant rate increases in the out years over the next 6 years that will be challenging for both councils to deal with going forward. But for this budget, I think staff was supportive, as was the committee, because they were able to come back with a budget that was within the realm of what the two councils wanted last fall. No new staffing is requested in this budget. So many of their costs in the short run are essentially fixed. They also have costs increasing from DC Water that are noted in the packet. So with all of that, the committee was comfortable with the WSSC Water recommendation.
Thank you for that. I'm going to turn it back to the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Mr. Lovchenko, for that report out. I want to turn it over to WSSC and invite the general manager to provide some comments, because all of us have been in correspondence with you, and particularly with residents, about the Potomac Interceptor. And I think it would behoove the body and all those who are following this conversation to get an update from WSSC, because while it was not a WSSC pipe, we are We are being asked, or WSSC is being asked, to pay a portion of it. And to go one step further, it speaks to the aging infrastructure that exists and underscores the need for this funding so that our aging pipes can be repaired as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Chair Glass and members of the council. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. Specifically on the Potomac Interceptor, you may recall that we had initially been told, or it was initially communicated, that the emergency would be $20 million. There were also 3 planned projects, and in January, actually, there was a presentation to wholesale customers from DC Water that provided the cost estimates for those planned projects. After the failure, we received an updated presentation of the planned costs for those projects, which had increased. That was about early February, in addition to the estimate for the emergency. It's been a few weeks now. We received a correspondence from DC Water, which shared that the estimated costs are now $59 million. That includes the emergency and also bringing forward work on one of the planned projects. After that, we received notice that they were going to move forward with some additional urgent need work on the Potomac Interceptor, which is in the Maryland section. And it's important for our customers to understand that this piece of infrastructure is shared infrastructure because of where the failure happened and where this infrastructure sits. All of the costs are borne by Virginia and Maryland jurisdictions, utilities. So that means that DC Water does not have a share in the costs per the existing intermunicipal agreement that is under discussion, and we continue to assess that internally. But at this point, the costs that have been shared with us would require WSSC Water on behalf of our customers to pay 30.9% of the costs. And of course, the city of Rockville has a share of our costs, which is almost 16% of our 30.9%. We continue to hear from DC Water on the cost for the Potomac Interceptor. Those are still being shared with us. In addition to that, a less visible failure was the Anacostia force main from the Anacostia pump station, which had failed, and we had worked with DC Water to essentially get the flows from our service area through the Anacostia pump station. That is the point at which we're conveying the flows to DC Water, a significant amount of flow. They are also moving forward with urgent need repairs for that pipeline. And we are also, for the pipeline that we manage, which is a 102-inch gravity sewer that flows to the Anacostia pump station. We have initiated work on that project as well. So that is going through the procurement process. Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Ms. Powell. And so just to underscore what you said, the Potomac Interceptor is estimated to cost $59 million to repair, and WSSC is on the hook for about $20 million.
Correct.
And that is to be paid for through this budget, through the rate increases and the system development charges, or a mix thereof.
Through the rate increase. It is an impact to the rate increase. Typically, the planned projects are planned over multiple years. The emergency work, we expect to receive that because this is work that has been paid for. We expect to receive that as part of the fiscal year 2027 costs.
And
to
then
this
just
budget.
last question I have for you. We underwent a nearly month-long freezing spell with a weather phenomenon earlier this year. During the course of this winter, how many pipes or water mains burst within the system?
Morning, Council members. Manesa Musar, Chief Financial Officer. For the winter season, we had approximately 1,980 breaks over the course of the winter season. So that was from November through the end of March.
Okay, thank you. That 1,908. I know that nobody likes rate increases, but it is acutely aware that these rate increases are needed to pay for and repair aging infrastructure, at the core of which is clean and safe drinking water. If we do not provide this level of service, next year probably more than 1,900 pipes will burst, and we still have to pay for the Potomac Interceptor. And I look forward to getting updates as to that regional compact for a pipe that was not ours, how we are on the hook for so much of that expense. Just a different conversation for a different day, but very much appreciate this update. I yield back.
Thank you for that. I see Councilmember Don Luque.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to ask a quick clarifying set of questions because, there has been media attention on the state, of course, has filed a lawsuit related to the incident with the Potomac Interceptor. And I just wanted to be clear to make sure everybody's on the same page that action, that legal action pending across the street in the circuit court is related solely to damages that the state has incurred and doesn't impact costs that WSSC has to bear with respect to the ongoing work to repair, correct?
That, as it is filed, yes. We will continue to confer with our counsel.
Okay. And I appreciate that you may not be able to answer some of those things. And based on what may unfold in the course of the litigation across the street, it is possible there may be things that indicate that we WSSC, are not as responsible for payments of certain kinds, and that would reflect in a subsequent settlement, judgment, et cetera, that we would be able to take up at a later date once that action has been resolved, right?
I would say, without counsel being here, that may be the case.
Okay, thank you.
However, for fiscal year 2027,
Right.
we're expecting to receive the costs, and we will at the same time continue to evaluate the situation.
And as a reminder, the reason one of the hallmark reasons that the incident happened was because DC Water delayed capital repairs to a line that they knew or should have known was corroded, correct?
I would say that it appears that the repairs may not have been made before, well, the repairs were not made before the infrastructure failed.
Right. And so I just wanted to plant that as we bear responsibility for our own infrastructure, and that is why the funding that is required and the rate that we set is important in order to make sure we are maintaining that aging infrastructure appropriately. Thank you, Madam President.
Absolutely. And I will, as we had shared during committee discussions, we have tried to focus on high consequence of failure infrastructure ourselves. However, we have, many miles of pipeline, and the team does the best it can to maintain where we're not making capital investments or not able to get to those capital investments. We have tried to make sure we have belts and suspenders to also adequately fund operations and maintenance. And that is what our team is doing when they're addressing over 1,900 water main breaks. It's because we haven't been able to get to replacing those. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Is there anything else before I ask for a vote from council staff?
Just to note, a lot of the costs you've heard, they're not currently in the budget.
Yeah,
The costs have been sort of moving around a bit. So WSSC Water will have to do some additional reshuffling going forward, very likely. There's a couple other items that were noted in the budget that have already gone up. But then the Potomac Interceptor issue, as that plays out, whatever the bill is for that we ultimately have to pay, whether it's 27 or 28, that is something that will come back in addition to what we have here today.
Yes, thank you for that. And as a reminder, we do have a bi-county meeting with Prince George's County on May 14th, where we're going to be officially voting on 3 really WSSC items, because it's the operating budget, it's the CIP, and then the systems development charge, right? So those 3. I don't see anybody else wanting to make a comment with that. Please raise your hand if you are in agreement with the recommendation from the T&E committee as established today. It is unanimous. Yes. Thank you so much. And we're going to move on. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, council members.
Next, we are going to item 7, Washington Suburban Transit Commission. And I'm going to call on Chair Glass for that one.
Thank you very much, Madam President. The Washington Suburban Transit Commission sent over its FY27 administrative expense budget, and as is mandated in code, and the administrative expense requested an increase of $3,948, and this is a contribution that's approved by the county nature of the agency. And that is merely administrative. And so the WSTC's total FY27 administrative expense budget request is $550,376. And that is a unanimous T&E supportive measure.
Does council staff have anything else to add?
Nothing to add. Just that the T&E committee did review an item in the operating budget. I'll just kind of link these, including the past several fiscal years of county increases in contributions to the WSTC within the transit services budget. So if you see that as an item, it's just the council had approved several of these annual recommendations that were annual contribution increases that had been just absorbed into the transit services budget in the past that we're now including in the base. And the T&E committee did review that item, and this one has gone directly to full council as in line with prior year's approach prior to the bi-county meeting, so the council can have its recommendation.
Thank you for that. And I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. With that, we have a recommendation by the T&E committee. And thank you for council staff to add in those comments. All those in favor, please raise your hand. It passed unanimously with those present right now. We're going to move on to Technology and Enterprise Business Solution. I'm going to turn it to Chair Stewart for that report.
Thank you. The Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee met to review the TEBS FY27 operating budget. Before I get to the items that are on reconciliation, I do want to note that the TEBS budget did have a decrease this year of over $3 million. This is a reduction in their budget on contracted support in TEBS. I want to thank Director Roper for doing this. Government Operations and Fiscal Policy has been working with the TEBS department over the last 3 years during budget and in other times to really look at the budget of TEBS, and we appreciate the reduction in the contracted services. The items on reconciliation that were unanimously agreed to, the first is actually a new item. It is in the amount of $375,000, which would allow TEBS to make a go, no-go decision regarding the HHS Community Connect portal. As folks may remember, we did receive during the winter a request from the county executive's office to use FY26 money from the reserves for $800,000 for the TEBS study, as well as $2.2 million for HHS to continue and expand the Community Connect portal. We held a joint government operations and fiscal policy and HHS committee session to look at that request and decided that we would take it up in the FY27 operating budget. Therefore, the government operations and fiscal policy committee did a deep dive into the $800,000 request for the TEBS study. During our committee session, we worked with TEBS to figure out what was really doable and needed in FY27 and reduced the $800,000 request to $375,000 that you see on the reconciliation list. That was the first item. The next item on reconciliation is $144,000 for a backup system. This would, and I will let them describe the details of it, but basically this provides a cloud-based third method to save county data if attacked by digital adversaries. Excuse me. As we know, the increases to threats are cyber attacks have been increasing, and the staff can speak more directly to this. The next item is $170,000 to fund digital accessibility compliance software. This would ensure that future uploads of the content for our web update would be Department of Justice compliant under the ADA. As we all know, we are all experiencing the changes in the upgrade to the website. And again, staff can go into the amount of staff time that is currently being used to update the materials there, and this software would greatly reduce staff time to do that. There was also a CIP project that we discussed, the Next Gen Technology Refresh. I'm not sure if we want to take that up today because that actually is in the FY26 budget, but happy to have Dr. Tragus also review that. But the three items on the reconciliation list, again, are the $375,000 for the Community Connect portal study, and that is a new item, the $144,000 on reconciliation list for a cloud-based third method to save county data, and the $170,000 for digital accessibility. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Does council staff have anything else to add? And if anybody is okay, I see Councilmember Wojowondo, but if you have something else to add before I turn
just to amend on page 2 on the top, item D, the $2.6 million. It says from current revenue, but we recently received an amended PDF that shifts the source of funding for this new project from current revenues to short-term financing. And in fact, the fiscal year 27 is the correct name. It's a mistake on my part. It is not a 26, it's a 27. Thank you.
Very small, but highly important detail. Thank you for that. Now I'm going to turn it to Councilmember Wojowondo.
Thank you, Madam President. And before I make a specific comment on TEBS and ask a question, since this will be my first reduction recommendation, I just want to frame this a little bit. As you said, you had asked for reductions. I was happy to provide a list of 80 line item reductions. I think it's unique. I've never seen a council member do that in the way our budget process works. And so I took the framework seriously. We were left with an unbalanced budget, and that required a 6.3% property tax increase that we're going to talk about momentarily. And we had a big gap to fill, $180 million hole. I thought it's the responsible thing to do to put forward specific reductions to the base budget. And knowing that the process is not structured, that all of those would work perfectly, it's been good working with the agencies and our staff to put together the package over the last few weeks. None of us want to cut our schools, our nonprofits, and our county employees, but we've been put in a difficult position because of this budget. And the structure, frankly, I agree, is not designed for a council member to reduce the size of the county government from the outside. It's really hard. I remember Councilmember Sales last year sent a memo to the CAO saying, I want recommendations for a 1% across the board reduction, and that nothing was sent back. And so we're doing the best we can with what we have under the system. And I will say, though we're going to take straw votes today, there's still some time for you to constructively engage with my 81 recommendations, and that has happened, but there's more to do, and to help bring more operational cuts that can help us tighten our belts, because we're going to need them as we head into this budget. With that said, on TEBS, I'm going to move that the council reduce $400,000 from the county executive's recommendation, specifically as a partial reduction to the OCIO contractual support realignment. The executive proposed $1.1 million in long-term vacant positions inside the CIO's office that have been sitting empty, and redirect that money into the outside contracts instead. The vacancy elimination makes sense as a policy, and I support that. I'm not touching that, but what I'm proposing is that we hold back $400,000 on the contractor side. That still will allow $700,000 in new contractual support. The CAO has confirmed that this partial hold would not have an impact on fiscal or service impact. So I obviously want to hear from the director, but I think when we're trying to tighten belts, this is one of many things that we're going to have to do. So first I'll make the motion, and then we can hear from the director.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Bojoando, second by Councilmember Kristen Mink.
And
Can you
Director
please-
Roper, any context you want to add?
I'm really not certain what you're referring to.
Okay, so.
So this is of course, the first I've heard this, and would.
Sure, if you go to the pack, you have the packet, your team have the packet, this would be on page 17 of the packet, circle page 17. There's a realigned contractual support offset by elimination of long-term vacancies, Office of Chief Information Officer. There's a $1.1 million or 1.098453 expenditure there. I'm suggesting reduce that by $400,000. Yeah, and it's on page 43-9 of the budget summary book, and page 17 circle of the packet. And this is one of the line items that I had on my list, and had consulted with our staff and with the CAO that this would not have a service impact, and that would still allow $700,000 in contractual support to make this realignment.
So basically, this would have a service impact. If you look at our overall budget, the primary makeup of our budget is contractual. It's enterprise licensing. It would take away from other areas that I believe would be critical to our ability to manage the infrastructure. I would also say that there's just not a lot of areas within the TEBS budget that isn't contractual. So we pay all of the subscription services for Microsoft, all the applications for Oracle. If you look at from a pie chart perspective, if you look at TEBS budget, what you'll see there is that most of it is enterprise cost. So this would, of course, have an impact overall on other areas.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. This is a shift, which I support, shifting vacant positions into contracting, but it's not something we have to do. You still have a pot of money to do the contracts in. And again, the CAO responded to all of the colleagues that this would not have an operational impact. and the fact that you're not specifically be able to tell me what it would be.
Well, just hearing about it today.
Well, it was in there, and your CEO came to us with the feedback about this. So I appreciate what you're saying now, but I think we have to. These are not contracts that are in place. You still have flexibility of $700,000. I think we need to find reductions. So that's my motion, Madam President.
Thank you. Do you have another comment?
Yes, if I may just add, at our budget submission, we actually submitted a budget that was 5% below in our operating cost. As a request from OMB, we met that obligation. A way that we met that obligation is by reducing a number of our contractor costs, as well as going to a 35-hour work week, as well as looking at other expenditures that we would be able to decline. So to reduce our budget by another $400,000, to Director Roper's point, there will be some impact on the services and what we can do, because we have already reduced it significantly already, to include reduction of personnel, of positions. So it's a number of the items that, one of the items that's on the reconciliation list, for example, was because we reduced a $300,000 contractual cost to cover $170,000 contractual cost for the ADA requirement. So I say this because when we submitted our budget, we did the hard work of looking at what our current expenditures were, and we reduced that by 5%, as well as making some other hard decisions. So this will have an impact on us being able to continue our services.
No, I appreciate that, and I expect every agency to advocate for their budget, and obviously we're going to make some very, very difficult decisions that impact everyone's ability to deliver services, whether we are going to have special education teachers in elementary schools to do IEPs. I mean, there's going to be a lot of tough decisions down this, so I get it, and I appreciate your advocacy. This is an area I think that is just trying in line with the approach to try to find reductions. So thank you, Madam President.
And I'm going to take the opportunity to remind every single department, you got to come here ready. Councilmember Will Jawando sent the memo out days ago. You have no excuse to come here unprepared. And yes, you already made reductions, but we're telling you, this council is telling you, we cannot support what the county executive proposed. We're not doing a property tax increase. It's not going to happen. So help me help you by coming prepared. Councilmember Sidney Katz.
Thank you very much, Madam President. May I ask the Councilmember Jawando, how did you come up with that number? Is that just arbitrary?
It was a partial reduction. It left 64% of that pot. We just said, how can we reduce it a little bit? And then we conferred with the CAO, and he said it wouldn't have an operation impact. It was not pulled based on how they're going to use the funds. It was just based on trying to partially reduce these contractual services.
But so you didn't base it on a contract that you were attempting to?
No,
to
not a
away
specific
with,
contract.
So it really is an arbitrary number. Thank you, Madam President.
Councilmember Kate Stewart.
Thank you very much. I just want to say I don't like how we're doing this, because Director Roper, your team, all of our departments, we know cuts have to be made, but you have spent months putting together your budget. The CAO is not here. I'm actually asking if the CAO is going to confer with individual council members about reductions after committees have already gone through it, that he comes over and discusses those, and does not leave our department heads hanging out here on their own, because it is not fair to you. It is not fair to your team. That memo from the CAO came out Saturday afternoon. I understand if you did not have time nor had time to prepare for this today. As I said before, this department has looked at your contracts, worked with the committee to make reductions. maybe further reductions can be made, but that is a conversation to be made as an informed decision. Our TEBS department supports our entire county government, how our residents receive information, as we heard before from the Ethics Commission, how we follow our own laws and other laws in making filings. You serve a vital function here in the county. If we are going to make reductions to your budget further than what you have put forward, I want to make sure they are done from an informed place and not just picking a random number. And I would request that if the CAO believes that further cuts can be made, that he is also here for further budget discussions. Thank you.
Agreed. Mr. Madaleno, if you're listening, we look forward to seeing you here. Council Member Kristen Mink.
Thank you. I recognize, obviously, that all of us are in a very difficult situation at this point. I appreciate the work of the department. I appreciate the work of the committee. I appreciate, Councilmember Jawando for looking to additional cuts. We're going to have to take additional cuts beyond what happened in committee sessions, and that's going to be a difficult process. So as we discuss what the options are for those reductions that are before us as we go through this week, I can't pass up one that the CAO has indicated is not going to have a service impact, because we are in a situation where some of the other reductions that are also on the table are ones that are truly completely untenable. So we're deciding between a lot of bad and difficult options, and whatever possibilities we can reasonably bring to the table, I think has to be part of the conversation this week. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion in a second. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. And Councilmember Jawando, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think your motion was to reduce the contractual support realignment by $400,000, correct? Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7. Those against? 1, 2, 3. Is that a Councilman? Okay. Yes, I see it now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you. The motion passes. We're gonna move on with. Do you have the floor again? That's it. Okay. So with that, I don't see anybody else wanting to speak on TEPS. I see. You want to speak? You need to turn this little thing on. Okay. Councilmember Evans.
Sure. So I guess I can't keep saying I'm new, but okay, I'm new. I forgot that. No, but what I wanted to say too, I think it will be important that as we are going through the work sessions, this is going to be difficult, right? It's difficult just listening to everyone, but for me, what I would like to be able to do just is continue to collaborate with people. And I think, as Councilmember Stewart said, it would be important that once we kind of look at all the information and we figure out that we have to take deeper cuts, it will be important to know how those cuts will really impact the county. So that was one of the reasons why I voted against it, because I know and I heard from you all how deeply you're going, and I want to be able to see if we do go further what that looks like. So we have a lot more work sessions ahead. This is my first budget, and that's what I will be doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you. And I also want to appreciate the work that you all do. I know it's difficult, and this is across. You were not unique. You're just the first one that I made this motion, because we have to get into these contracts and escalations in some of the base budget items. We've been working with central staff for the last couple weeks. We have communicated with departmental agencies. I will also re-up that we've got the CAO's memo, and that we should, I would hope that there's communication between the chief administrative officer and his department heads about things before he says they're okay. I don't think that's a bad assumption on my part. But I do understand you advocating, and I just want you to know we value the work that you're doing. I have suggested more cuts to TEBS than I've offered today, over $2 million. I'm not going to offer those motions today because I do want to talk more in depth about what they would mean over the next week. So I'm saying that to you publicly. But we are in a tough position. We were put in this position, and we have to find reductions.
We just want to participate in that.
I want you to participate, and I want the CAO to participate with you too. So thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilmember Rujo-Wondo. We have a motion that already passed. All those in favor to support the Technology and Enterprise Business Solution Plan FY27 operating budget as amended today in this committee or in this session, please raise your hand. So, and those, yes, as amended, yes. Okay, so that's 10. Against, 1. The motion passes. Thank you so much for coming. We're gonna move on to the cable plan. I'm going to turn it back to Chair Stewart.
Thank you. All right. The committee recommended the Cable TV and Communications Plan operating budget at a level of $7,824,171 as recommended by the executive to the full council. As a note, this is a budget in transition. The GO committee received a preliminary briefing during its February 19th, 2026 work session on the Cable Fund strategic plan and its alignment with the 2024 OLO report regarding the Cable Fund. And as chair, I sent all of my colleagues here in their offices an update on that work session and the changes to the Cable Fund strategic plan. The Cable Fund revenues have been used to finance community programming under a combination of fund transfers to county agencies such as MCPS and Montgomery College, and contracts with external organizations such as MCM. And TEB staff allocations. This year, the executive is recommending a consolidation of these diverse efforts under a single entity that would be responsible for coordination and delivery of these services, and that would be MCM, or known as MCT in the contracts. A new contract is currently being negotiated at the April 13th committee review of the FY27 operating budget for Cable TV and Communications Plan. We did recommend the budget, but we also said that we wanted to make sure the full contract and the MOU structure would be in place during these budget deliberations. As of April 29th, and I'll look to Dr. Torregas to see if we've gotten an update. The contract has not been finalized, and so one of the things that the committee had recommended is if the contract isn't finalized, that we continue with the status quo through the next operating budget. And so I know this was an area also that Councilmember Jawando had suggested, the $500,000 reduction to MCM, and the council president had also suggested a reduction for MCM of $2.5 million. So I think there's possibly conversation regarding this, but I'll turn it back to the council president and see if Dr. Torregas maybe has any updates on this.
Go ahead, Dr. Torregas, go ahead.
I do not have any updates. I understand that the Office of County Attorney has been at work, but they have nothing to report. At least I've received no updates.
No. Do you want, anybody else has any comments or any? Look, this is an area that we're gonna have to make reductions. And so can council staff go over what we approved last year versus what it is suggested this year? I see that for FY26, we approved, but I want you to say instead of me.
Right.
I think you sound better than me. Yes.
Last year, the council approved a cable plan budget of $5.6 million. This year, it's increased to $7.8 million. The reason is that we were doing direct transfers from the cable fund to Montgomery College and Montgomery County Public Schools. This year, again, under the new agreement that the county executive has recommended, those direct fund transfers are no longer there in the budget. So you see a reduction of transfers, Instead, those transfers are shifted to MCM, doing business as MCT. So that's the challenge is it's not an increase, it's the same budget, same budget, but the way that we pay money to Montgomery College and Montgomery County Public Schools is different. Instead of a direct transfer to their budgets, it is now going through MCM. At least that's a recommendation, but we have nothing in front of us to say that that is indeed the way the county will move. So I just want to make sure you understood it's not an increase.
Yeah, it just makes things even more complicated because it hasn't even been signed, and that's what we're dealing with right now. Councilmember Bojawanto.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, this is tough because we need to figure out how the cable fund and how that connects to community media and how that's all going to work. We need community media, and we need to figure out, as that revenue source continues to decline, how we're going to make sure that that happens over time, and that's a larger question. The reason I proposed the $500,000, and I call it a hold, is because I want to see this contract framework in place first, and before we put this already forward. I did not request as much of a cut as the council president, as much as a reduction, but I was trying to find some funding here. It would still allow 1.689 of the realignment to proceed as proposed, and so I don't know if there's any context that anyone wants to give on timeline or where you think this is and how this would impact the proposed realignment. Director Roper.
As stated by Dr. Charegas, it is still in with the county attorney's office. So we don't really have any feedback. We've tried over the last several days to get feedback, but it is still being reviewed.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add? Yes.
Yeah, I just want to add that this is a much needed.
Can you please introduce yourself?
Good morning. I'm Derek Kinney, Community Engagement Manager. I work closely with the Access Media Operations, and I've helped to author the updated contract. The contract as it is now is over 22 years old, and it doesn't speak to the burgeoning and profitable content creator economy that many other jurisdictions are profiting from and investing in. The new contract will position MCT, which will be in partnership with the schools and the college, to provide what I would like to call a ecosystem of workforce development for regards to content creation. Includes strategic growth initiatives, community content creation and engagement, as opposed to preparing people to work in a cable studio. Prepare people to be content creators, storytellers, have modern skills and abilities to be relevant as employees in the modern workforce, but also be able to move forward and contribute positively to the county, as well as invest in our cable system and access operations by providing fresh, meaningful, and engaging content. One more thing I'd like to say is that my colleague is here, Jasmine, who is the CEO of Montgomery Community Television. If it's not seen as a disservice, I would like to recommend that she has a moment, perhaps, to speak on her behalf, as the $500,000 will directly affect her operation, her staff, and the future of our organization.
I don't want to say no, but we know that the need is there. We're just focused right now in reductions. I'm going to turn it to Councilmember Glass.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Thank you for this conversation. I think probably the most relevant point of this conversation was what was just noted, that this contract is 22 years old. I think the programming also reflects that. I think the form of communication has not been updated entirely to the age in which we're in, 2026. And all of that is underscored by the fact that we need local media. We need the services that are provided, but I don't think that they're being provided in a way that meets the moment. And this is a tough conversation because I would prefer that a contract be negotiated recognizing the new media ecosystem in which our 1.1 million residents want to be informed and want to be communicated with, and that was reflected in a budget for this conversation. But what we're trying to do is multifold. We are trying to reduce a budget across every agency and department. We are trying to address the declining revenue or acknowledge the declining revenue because of the consumer habits of our residents and the declining cable fund. And I think there's broad consensus that the services as currently being provided, and this is not to any individual organization, I think all of the agencies and organizations that participate in this need to kick it up a notch. And how we do all of those different things at this time is complicated. And so it's complicated. Let me ask you this. The contract that's being negotiated, I don't know if we have seen it, but how does it update and modernize services? And because of the update and modernization that I will assume is in the contract, because if it's not, then it's not a good contract. How are cost savings reflected in these updated, modernized services?
Several ways is the need for outsourcing. When we bring them together, then you bring together a myriad of resources that exist in silos as opposed to one place. So if there's a need for a pilot, a drone pilot, instead of having to outsource that to an expensive contractor, then MCT can refer to Montgomery College to receive a drone pilot within their same organization. If the county
Is there money in here for a drone pilot?
Well, I think there's already a drone pilot that exists within MCT. That's actually one of those things where people have a myriad of skills, and one of them is being a licensed drone pilot. But if it's needed, then we're able to secure that at a cost what I would imagine be severe cost savings to the county or to MCT as well. But there's other things in here that kind of capitalizes on the environment where you have 3 institutions that are responsible for providing media education at different levels, the schools, and the college, and
so what I'm hearing is there's consolidation.
Yes. Correct.
Where are the savings with that consolidation?
The savings come from being able to share equipment, share studio, share staff, and the savings actually is not a surplus. It's in response to, I believe, what was 8% cost reduction that the Access operations already faced this past fiscal year.
So can someone just speak to that very specific point? If there is consolidation, if there is better coordination and sharing, how does this budget reflect that?
Hi, I'm Lenny Bautista, the TEBS finance manager. And the way we constructed the cable fund plan this year is that we have a projected 8% reduction in revenues coming in. So we took those 8% revenue reductions and we applied it across the board to everyone where the money's being distributed, right? So all of our franchise fees are based on percentages, and the 8% is also part of the reductions to the schools, the college, and MCT. So they are all receiving that 8% reduction.
So you're saying that the cost savings are being reflected in the 8% reduction?
Correct. That was budgeted for the 3 organizations.
Okay. When is this contract to be ratified?
The contract requires a council resolution. Soon thereafter, we anticipate it to be ratified before the end of the fiscal year.
I'm sorry, it does not require a council resolution.
Okay.
I'm sorry, is it?
At the very end of the contract, there's a place for the council resolution to be input. We can work with our procurement staff to see if that is needed. If it's not needed, we can remove that from the contract.
So
no, it's a non-competitive contract. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
It is a non-competitive contract, and therefore it needs to have some type of authority as such, and a council resolution would be one way to do that. Thank you.
I think underlying all of this is a broad, if not universal, recognition that the status quo cannot hold anymore for a variety of reasons. I would very much like to see those contracts. I would like to get actually a detailed explanation as to what this cost sharing and information dissemination is like, which will better help me with this particular budget. I'm not sure what's on the table, if there's a motion or not. Is Madam President?
He hasn't made it, but that was the intention. But I don't want to.
Yeah, I'll yield back.
I have other people in the queue, including Council Member Stewart, but I'm gonna waiting to make sure that he's done. Thank you. Now you can go ahead.
Sorry. I just wanted to clarify that, and I'm looking at my committee members, because what we said in committee is if the contract was not done, our recommendation is to keep the status quo and reject the county executive's suggestion this year and to fund MCM, MCPS, and MC at their amount, but not go to this consolidation until we went through the whole process for the contract. So, right, and that would reflect as was discussed, the reduction that was already built into this. So,
can Council staff please finish clarifying this?
If I could just clarify, first of all, you see that you approved 5.6 last year. It's recommended 7.8. Inside that is 2.5. That is the amount that we gave to Montgomery College and Montgomery County Public Schools. If you subtract 2.5 from 7.2, you get up about $300,000 of savings. This year, the consolidated savings is about $300,000. From my viewpoint as an analyst, for you, I think that this year is a transition year, and the council should expect, and the GEO committee would be working with MCM and TEBS to make sure that additional savings are found next year, because that will then be the implementation of a consolidated structure. Right now, we don't have a consolidated structure. So you have $300,000 this year, looking forward to additional cost savings through consolidation fiscal 28. Conversely, if you stood still with the 2.5 million going by direct fund transfer, then any amount that you want to reduce would be reduced from Montgomery, MCM, MCT this year.
Thank you for that. I'm going to move on to Council Vice President Marilyn Balcom.
I don't think this is going to clarify anything, but I'll go. I just want to say the reason I supported the last reduction was on the CAO's list. He showed that there was no impact. That was the only item on the list that showed no impact. So I'm looking at this, and excuse me, if this is a consolidation, are there corresponding reductions in the other budgets that equal this 2.5? Or am I getting the idea of consolidation wrong?
I will say that one of the things the consolidation does is provide more transparency in the budgets for the way that Montgomery College and the Montgomery County Public Schools manage their access operations. As of now, we don't have that information. We do have information about the reductions for the budget for Montgomery Community Television, and they will provide an accounting, as they do every year, of how the declining in revenues and amounts will affect their overall operating costs.
So just the idea that we're going to add 2.5 or 2.2 million dollars to this budget line item, I would expect that there would be a corresponding reduction of $2 million someplace else in the budget.
I can answer that. On page 6 in the packet is the cable plan. It's very tiny. But you see at the top in the on the third set of boxes, you see all those zeros that are there. And the previous years, that's about, amounts to about $2.6 million that was given to the schools and the Montgomery County Public Schools and Montgomery College directly. It was a direct transfer from the cable fund.
Okay.
So that's the amount of money that's now going into the general fund transfer to be part of this consolidated. It's going to be a payment directly to MCT versus, and then MCT will then distribute those funds to the college and the schools.
Okay, so am I correct, and thank you to the chair, that this doesn't impact the general fund? Or how does it impact the general fund?
So the cable fund is funded by revenues, the cable franchise
Right.
revenues. So that is it impacts the transfer, right? So now we're seeing a $7 million transfer versus the $5 million, but it's all still coming from the cable fund revenues. It's just we're no longer going to be paying the schools directly. We're going to pay it through the general fund, then to MCT.
Okay, thank you.
Before I move on, I'm gonna turn it to council staff. Mr. Howard.
I was going to make the same point that was just made, but also to clarify, if the council wanted to go forward with the GEO Committee's recommendation of the contract not being ready, so wanted to do it at last year's model, the direct transfers to MCPS and the college would return, and all the money would not shift to MCM, MCT. And then if there was any discussion of reductions that the council wanted to take to the MCM or MCT portion of this monies that comes out of the cable fund, that would provide savings to the general fund.
So budgetarily, that would be a wash.
Correct, the MC and MCPS portions, yep.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stewart.
No, I just wanted to note that because MCPS and MC I'm not seeing in the audience. Oh, there you are. Okay, sorry, missed you. Because this does impact their budgets too, and so this is again more of a transfer of where the money is being accounted for rather than an increase this year. And they're already experiencing reductions, as was noted. So just wanted to clarify where the money was going.
Thank you for that. I don't see anybody making a motion. This has been discussed and clarified. Unless I see somebody making I see. Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm not going to make a motion, but does the committee want to revert back, or are we going to stay the way this is?
I think
presented here?
I'm looking at my colleagues because our committee recommendation was dependent on conversations regarding, let me step back. There's going to be a contract between the county and MCM regarding, to update the 22-year contract in order for MCM to then have MOUs with MCPS and Montgomery College to then distribute their funds. We first need a contract, then we need the MOUs to make sure that all of this will be done appropriately so that we make sure that MC and MCPS receive their distribution. Our hope is that this will lead to, as was stated, consolidation and savings in the future, and improvements to how we are doing this work. The committee stated, when we met, we were told we thought that the contracts would be done and then move on to the MOUs. Because they have not been done, our committee recommendation is that we don't move forward in fiscal year FY27 with the distribution as recommended by the county executive, but that we go back to how we distributed the funds in FY26 and prior. So that's a direct distribution from the county government to MCM and also to MCPS and MC. That's a recommendation.
Councilmember Glass.
I want to thank the chair for very succinctly stating what the recommendation was. I think that makes sense, and that goes back to the point I was making earlier about the confluence of so many different things, making it very challenging in this moment. But I think Dr. Turi has made the point very well that this budget, as introduced, already has a nearly $300,000 cost saving. And because these contracts are going to be renewed, and because this body has shared its thoughts quite strongly about what needs to be done, when this body looks at the budget next year, it is the expectation that all of that is incorporated and more cost savings because of consolidation is found.
Thank you. Councilmember Wiljowondo.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the discussion. I appreciate the GO committee's work on this, and Mr. Tregas and team. I will say just more broadly, and Councilmember Glass was, I think, alluding to this in the context of this contract. A lot of the feedback from the CAO was that, well, these are contractually obligated things. Think contracts that are in process. And so the question of, can contracts be renegotiated? Can escalations be slowed? Can operational efficiencies be identified, or other things absorbed by the agencies? That's a real important question as we work through this budget, because we don't have every contract. As the legislative branch of government, we are not privy to every contract that the executive branch is negotiating. And I just will put that out there as just an important point of transparency. And as we're trying to manage this difficult budget, and I put it back on the administration that we need your help in identifying where there are efficiencies that can be found in these contracts. And a question for central staff. The council, the county attorney or Mr. Howard, the council retains appropriation authority under the charter to recommend reductions that the executive branch is characterized as legally or contractually required. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And I would note that a contract that's under negotiation is not binding, of course. And my understanding is that most, if not all, county contracts are subject to appropriation. They contemplate that we have a yearly appropriation process, and they're subject there too.
Right. And we had this context in ENC the other day. We were talking about the materials management place. If they sign a contract with somebody but they don't have the money to fulfill it, then they've got to renegotiate it. And so I just wanted to say that for colleagues as we move forward, because many of the things are a lot's rolled up in contracts, and I need the executive to be working with us on that. So on this one, I'm not going to make a motion, but I just wanted to put that out there for the future. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilmember Fritzen.
Yeah, I just want to appreciate the thoughtful work of my former colleagues and new colleague on the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee. The Cable Fund has been a beast of an issue for many years that I know the committee has been trying and pushing hard and demanding changes that are overdue. And we all recognize that, and it needs to happen. Everybody has been off in their own silos and had the luxury of cable funds flowing in like a mighty stream. And now we have the mightier streaming, and that has essentially killed the entire business model that public communications were based off of. And I think, unfortunately, our county government, and I think most county governments, were caught behind the eight ball here, and really were, frankly, a decade or two behind what was inevitable, and didn't see that, it's like looking out at the star, not realizing that you think you're looking at it, but actually it exploded in the past. It just hasn't reached you yet. And that's essentially what the Cable Fund has been. I do have a question, though. So if we revert back, based on the committee's recommendation, which I think is the right recommendation here, it's not ready for prime time. There was a hope that it would be ready. It's not ready. There's no contract, and so I don't think we should move forward. But there is an assumption of $300,000 in savings. So I'm just trying to understand whether or not, when reverting back to the previous iteration, that we are still going to assume the 300 or require the 300,000 in savings, and how we are going to distribute that amongst the departments. I just want that clarified because I think it's important. I don't think it was quite iterated here.
Can council staff answer that, Mr. Howard?
Sure. Council staff would work with the executive branch to ensure how that money is broken out within the total value recommended. So we have because we need the specific amounts for Montgomery College and Montgomery County Public Schools to be part of their appropriation resolution, as we've done in the past years. So we would follow up with the executive branch to clarify that.
Okay, so the assumption is we are taking the 300,000, but we are going to have staff work out how to assume that and to reflect that in the budget so that we have it agency by agency since we're not consolidating. Okay, so I think it's important. We are taking a $300,000 reduction here, which was part of what the original consolidation assumption was. We're just not consolidating it because there's no contract to consolidate yet. So I just want to make sure that's on the record, because if not, we would have $300,000 more as opposed to the reduction that was already assumed in the budget. So thank you for clarifying that. That was my assumption, but I thought it needed to be said out loud because it wasn't actually in the packet or discussed here, and I'll yield back.
Thank you. We're keeping the status quo. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I first off want to thank the Chair of Government Operations for clarifying what we did do and what we didn't do, I guess, at Government Operations. I think just from a historical note, the reason we even got franchise fees was because the cable companies needed the county and others right-of-way to deliver their product. Everybody had a cable running in front of their house, and whether it was just like any other utility, though this was a different type of utility, like every other utility, they use the county's right-of-way, or in the cities or whoever. Of course, those days are gone, and so we're starting to see less and less people that are using the cable and the streaming, et cetera. But we have to ask one more time, and we've asked several times, when are we going to get this contract? Because that is when we can finally start to unravel this whole situation. Do we have any timeline on when we'll actually get the contract?
I'm sorry, but we have no control over.
And I appreciate that, and obviously we don't either. But we need somebody to.
We'll work on trying to.
Thank you, Madam President.
Great questions, and I think we all appreciate a history too. We depend on Councilmember Katz for those lessons. Yes, another frustration with the county executive. From what I hear is that we're gonna keep the status quo, and we're gonna have soon things lined up to see where the 300,000 are gonna end up. With that, I look forward to approving this item. All those in favor, please raise your hand for the cable and TV communications plan. As recommended by the committee. Yes, and it is. Yes, thank you. It is unanimous. We are going to move on. Thank you for coming. And the last item for the morning session is item 10, property tax rate options. We're going to turn it back to the co-committee chair, Chair Stewart.
Thank you. Last week on Wednesday, the Government Operations Fiscal Policy Committee had a robust discussion on property taxes, income taxes, the ITOC, Working Families Income Supplement. Today, right now, we are just taking a straw vote on the committee's recommendation regarding the county executive's proposal for a property tax increase of 6.3 cent increase for Montgomery County Public Schools. The committee reviewed this, as I said, with regard to a number of other items, and on the county executive's recommended property tax increase, we are not recommending that to the full council, and it was unanimous.
Thank you. I don't think there's anything else to be said, but I am not going to move on with that vote without everybody here. So we're gonna pause until they come. Oh, Councilmember Mink, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Happy to help. That's what I'll do. Well, it's a lovely day out. I wanted to share that I'm going to be abstaining from the vote today. That is because while I think that most or all of us have publicly agreed that the county executive's proposal is not feasible for our residents, I also have concerns that we're going to arrive at the end of this week and face cuts to MCPS and county services that are untenable. There are paths forward, but given where we are right now, while it would be easiest for me to just raise my hand and my inbox would probably appreciate it, especially given that this is only a straw vote, I am not comfortable indicating that I'm in a place to make even a tentative decision today, given the state of the many critical variables at play. So I very much appreciate the work of colleagues and of the committee, but that's where I am personally right now.
Thank you for those comments. I am not going to move forward with a vote without him being here. So we're going to pause. Go ahead, filibuster.
I was going to say, give me a mic and I'll start talking. So I am going to support the, I'm not going to support the tax increase. I think that, as many people have said, our residents are hurting. Our residents are having difficulties making ends meet, and I just don't think that this is the responsible thing to do. However, in order to get there, we have to make cuts. It's going to be a very difficult week, and we're going to have to make the cuts.
Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you to the GO committee and to colleagues, the council president. The council has been put in a really tough spot here. People are struggling with higher gas prices, higher utility bills, higher grocery prices. The economy is in a really challenging moment. We have thousands and thousands of county employees who are federal workers and federal contractors whose jobs have been lost, who are concerned about whether or not their jobs are going to be there. And we have an economy that's likely heading into more challenges as we move forward. I appreciate the fact that we are poised now not to accept this property tax recommendation. This effectively would be a 12% increase on residents' property tax bills. And it is just completely unaffordable at a time when our residents are saying, first and foremost, their biggest concern for their families is affordability. It will make us less affordable. It will make this county less economically competitive at a time when our economy is not growing anywhere near the level that we would want. So I have been strong, loud, and early in saying that we should not have property tax increases. We should not be increasing costs and taxes at a time when people are struggling. And I appreciate the fact that we are poised now not to do it with respect to the property tax. And with that, I'll yield back.
Thank you. Councilmember Wiljo-Wanda.
Thank you, Madam President. I will be supporting the GO committee recommendation, no property tax increase. As I've said in my April 28th memo, this is the wrong ask at the wrong time of the wrong people. And I think we've heard many of those reasons over the last few weeks. Montgomery County has lost over 9,900 federal jobs. Inflation's been compounding. Families are watching their grocery bills, their energy costs, their rent, their child care expenses all move in the wrong direction, up. And it does not leave room for this flat, regressive property tax increase on top of it. We've heard from residents at the public hearings, April 7th through the 21st, even most recently. The message was clear. People are stretched thin. They're not asking us to spend less on services. They're asking us not to make their lives harder while we figure out how to pay for them. Obviously, we'll discuss as we move forward other options of how to pay, and we're going through that difficult process now. But on this vote, my vote is no. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Next, Councilmember Sidney Katz.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And I also will not be supporting this increase, but I want to point out that this is a tax rate increase. There are people through reassessments and other reasons, their property taxes are going to go up. And we will be spending that money in various ways. but this is a tax rate increase, not just a tax increase. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Councilmember Evan Glass.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I appreciate the work that this council has done, and recognizing that these are tough economic times and there is a lot of economic anxiety being felt in our community. And the tough conversations we are having this week and will continue next week is the direct result of the county executive continuing to propose tax increase after tax increase without requisite cost-saving measures, and it's left up to the 11 members of this body to determine how we ease the burden of our residents. I do very much appreciate Montgomery County residents who know that these are tough decisions, and that if we are not going to move forward with tax increases, which I'm not, and clearly a majority of this council is not going to do, that there are some offsets that have to be made, and those are difficult decisions. And that is what we are working through this week. But the economic anxiety that is being felt by our community needs to be acknowledged, and now is not the time for tax increases.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. And I'm going to reiterate what I said earlier this morning. We're going to be putting together a roundtable in the fall with the upcoming Democratic nominee and Republican nominee for county executive, or labor unions, chambers, and key stakeholders, including the upcoming president of the county council, Council Vice President Marilyn Balcom, because this system as it is not reasonable and it's not sustainable. And what we're dealing with right now is another example of that, and it shouldn't be that way. With that, there is a committee recommendation to not accept the county executive's proposed property tax increase. All those in favor of the committee recommendation, please raise your hand. We have 10. Those against? Those abstaining? There's one abstention. With that, the recommendation passes. And we are done for the morning. See you back at 1:30. Thank you.